You may have heard of Noah's flood, but what many people don't know is that there are flood legends around the world. Today I'm gonna go looking through some of the strangest ones, and oh boy, there's something. The three frog sisters lived together in a house in a swamp. One night, Snake went there wanting to marry one of them. He put his hand on her face, and she awoke and asked who he was. When Snake answered, she sent him away, calling him hard names such as slimy fellow and small eyes. Next night, young Beaver went there with the same intent, and put his hand on the face of one of the sisters. When she found out who it was, she told him to be gone, calling him names such as short legs and big buttocks. Beaver went home and began to cry. His father, after Beaver told him what the matter was, said, "That is nothing. Don't cry, or it will rain too much." But Beaver insisted on crying. As he cried, much rain fell, and the swamp flooded. The water covered the top of the tall swamp grass, submerging the frog's house. The frogs got cold and went to Beaver's house. They said, "We wish to marry your sons." But old Beaver said, "No! You called us hard names." The water was now running in a stream. The frogs swam down it until a whirlpool sucked them in, and they descended to the house of the moon. The moon invited them to sit by the fire, but they said, "No, we wish to sit there," pointing at him. "Here?" he asked, pointing at his feet. "No, not there." He kept pointing to different parts of his body, asking, "Will you sit here?" Finally, he pointed at his face, and the sisters cried out, "Yes!" and jumped on his face, spoiling his beauty. The frog sisters may be seen on the moon's face to this day. The end. One winter, it snowed and snowed so much that only the tops of the tallest firs were visible. It was unbearable. All the animals left for the sky looking for heat. They knew that they had to hurry or perish from the cold. The squirrel, being the smallest, climbed to the top of one of these tall trees and made a hole in the sky, which he entered heaven. That hole is the sun. Astounded by this deed, everyone declared that the squirrel should be a grand chief. The other animals followed the squirrel. One came too close to the heat and burned his fur, which is why it is now yellow. What animal is this? So the squirrel created day, but the bear said to the squirrel, "If it's always day, how will you hunt?" He spread himself out like a thick blanket across the sky hole, and once again it became night. So the bear made night. He is black because he likes the darkness of night and lives under the earth. All of the elements which fell on earth, good and bad, hung in skins from the branches of a large tree on an island. Rain, snow, fair weather, storms, cold, and heat were kept there. But the bear was mean. He and his sons hoarded the heat, camping at the base of the tree to keep it for themselves. "Which of us can get the heat?" said the animals to each other. "Who is strong enough to fight against this ferocious bear?" The reindeer, harmless and light-footed, presented himself. He swam to the tree and seized the bag before the slow-moving bear had a chance to catch him. As the reindeer swam away with the heat, the bear launched his canoe and pursued. But just as he was about to catch the reindeer, his oar broke and he could go no further. The mouse, working towards the common goal of allowing the heat to be shared, had eaten away at the inside of the paddle. This accident gave the animals time to run away with the heat. The sack was very heavy. Pairs of animals took turns carrying it, suspended from a stick between them. They had far to go to reach the lower earth. What's the lower earth? And they had to camp many times. One night, the mouse, whose shoe was in tatters, decided to cut a little piece of the skin from the sack to mend her shoe. The hole she cut allowed the heat to escape. It covered the earth with such intensity that it made all the snow melt. The water grew and grew into a flood which covered even the tallest mountains. A little old man with white hair predicted this and suggested that they all work together to build a large boat, but everyone had laughed at him. "Make it yourself," they said. "We can always go to the mountains where the waters will never reach us." But they were wrong, and the waters did reach them, and they all perished. The water rose above the highest peak of the Rocky Mountains. There was no more earth. All the men, all the animals, all the birds perished. As for the little old man, he built a large canoe for himself. As he sailed about, he rescued pairs of each animal as he came to them. This man was called Etsi, grandfather, or Enidehigui, old man. This canoe was too crowded to support all the animals for long, and the good swimmers dived to find earth underneath the water, but the water was too deep. The eagle flew off looking for earth, but he came back without having found any. Then the turtle dove took off. She flew for a whole day and returned exhausted and unsuccessful. The next day she went again. She came back exhausted that night, but she held a piece of evergreen. She had seen the tops of the trees and had rested there. Encouraged by this, the aquatic animals decided to try again. The muskrat ran out of breath before he found anything. The otter stayed very long under the water, but when she reappeared at the surface half dead, she said nothing, nothing! The little duck, in his turn, dived and returned with a little bit of mud in his feet. He raised and remade Earth. All the animals cried, Ranconley only is a great man, a chief. Who is Rancon? Is that the duck? Ranconley. Ranconley only is a great man, a chief. The end. Now, this culture has another one. It's very short, so I'll just say it here, but it's my favorite. A man survived the flood in one remaining dry spot. Asked to end the flood, he drank up all of the water. The earth was then too dry, and he created rivers. Open Beggy. Yeah, okay. Open Beggy had a possum, which he kept in a jar. She left him in the house with her two grandmothers while she went to the garden to get taro. She gave little taros to her grandmothers and the big ones to the possum, which annoyed the grandmothers greatly. Once when Obimbegi was out collecting fruits, they beat the possum to death. When Obimbegi's returned, she gave the grandmothers their fruit and then went to the possum. She found him battered and dead in the jar. She took his body into the forest and wept over him. No. The next day, she took her two sons away from the house. Then, on her word, the stream rose and washed both of the grandmothers into the sea. She remained standing there until she could see them no more. Then she went back home.